This is big, ladies and gentlemen. The size of the UP annual budget that was now presented on the floor of the UP Assembly is 6.9 lakh crore for the fiscal year 2023-2024. And this is huge. Let's get you some of the numbers as they stack. This is compared to 6.1 lakh, 15 lakh crore in the last fiscal. In 2016-2017, this number was just about 3.4 lakh crore. So in the last about 6 to 7 years, this is nearly doubled. The fiscal deficit is estimated at 84,883 crore, which is 3.84% of the estimated GDP of the state or gross state domestic product. Rupees 600 crore is under Chief Minister's mass marriage scheme for general category girls, while 150 crore for marriage of OBC girls in order to empower rural women. 83 crore has been proposed for self-help groups. 4,032 crore have been allocated to provide assistance to destitute widows. At present, about 32.62 lakh women are being provided assistance in the state. 235 crore allocated for 2 new link expressways, Jhansi Link Expressway, Chitrakoot Link Expressway. 200 crore proposed for developing industrial corridor along Gorakhpur Link Expressways. 64,000 crores, as said by Yogi Adityanath itself, has been earmarked for state-backed and center-backed welfare schemes and implementing them on ground. It's landmark. I chatted with those involved with the UP Global Investor Summit, Suhail Seth, Professor Dipankar Sengupta, and also Sandeep Ghosh. Listen into their thoughts on UP on its road to 1 trillion economy. It's a landmark budget that's been announced by the Uttar Pradesh government. The Finance Minister Suresh Khanna there standing on the floor of the UP Assembly and reading out a never-before budget. Even the Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath saying that from 2016-2017, from about 3,40,000 crore, this budget is almost more than double at 6,90,000 crore. So pushing close to 7 lakh crore budget that UP has announced. Very, very ambitious. But more importantly, he said that nearly 45% of the cost of this budget will be serviced by what the state itself is going to generate. Now, I have with me Suhail Seth, Professor Dipankar Sengupta, and Sandeep Ghosh, who's now MD and CEO of Birla Corp. Suhail Seth is brand consultant, and of course, Professor Dipankar Sengupta is a professor of economics, Jammu University. Somehow, they have also been involved with the UP Global Investors Summit. So, Suhail Seth, I'm going to ask you this. There are a lot of people who are saying this whole thing was a big balloon. The UP Global Investor Summit, this promise of 3 lakh crore plus of investment is all hogwash. And the fact that the first groundbreaking is going to happen sometime in September, one wonders how much of it is going to be reality and how much of it is a pipe dream. So let's start with that. Your thoughts on that?
All state summits for a long time have had captains of industry come there almost at times at the point of a gun and say, oh, we'll invest this, we'll invest that. You were too young then, Anand, to remember there used to be a chap called Somnath Chatterjee, who, before he became speaker, was the chairman of WBIDC. He signed more memorandums of understanding than any human being has signed, including their own death warrants. And he was called Moda, means M-O-U, Da. Da is a nice way of, acknowledging an older brother. So in India, we've had a tradition of signatures being appended, but execution not happening. UP is slightly different. Because I know 3 people who have been there at this summit and who have made promises on the back of very deep research. And let me name the 3. One is N. Chandrasekaran, the chairman of Tata Sons. Second is Mukesh Ambani. And third is what foreign investors as a group have committed. If you notice, the population and the diversity of Uttar Pradesh today is equal to all of Europe. If Uttar Pradesh was a country, it would be bigger than Europe. In terms of population demographics, it is ideally suited both in aspiration as well as in development. Number 3, if you talk to anyone today, Anand, and I was in Amritsar day before yesterday talking to some of my cousins who deal in textiles. And they said that earlier when we went to UP, we had to be back in our hotel rooms by 7 p.m. Today, law and order, what Yogi is stressing on healthcare, which, by the way, very few people know that Yogi Adityanath has always stressed on healthcare. He's been a great proponent of healthcare. Third is education. If you notice, Medanta has not only, suggested, they already have a facility running in Uttar Pradesh, which is going to be further augmented. So I don't know if all the 33 lakh or 3 lakh crore, 3 lakh crore money will come in one fell swoop. But what will happen is the following. You will get more and more jobs. The jobless growth that we keep talking about will no longer be there in Uttar Pradesh. With more jobs, what happens is you get the economy churning. Number two, the Ram temple is going to be ready by this December or September. Already with the cleaning up of Kashi, the kind of tourism you and I are witnessing has been unprecedented.
Yeah.
Let me give you another Tata insight. The Taj is setting up a 400-room hotel in Kashi, in addition to all their plans for Lucknow. So I'm saying that he may not get the last penny that has been promised within this fiscal year, but it augurs well. And Yogi is not the kind of person who's into hyperbole. You know, the bureaucracy has been cleaned up. Corruption is almost non-existent. That used to be a byword in Uttar Pradesh. So I think the UP Global Investor Summit, to my mind, has actually positioned Uttar Pradesh as a serious investment destination. Plus, because it is politically important, the Modis and the Shahs of the world will put their entire might behind it. Because if you deliver Uttar Pradesh, you deliver the Lok Sabha.
That's the telling aspect, but for the corporate and it's about the ease of doing business.
Absolutely.
The animal in them has to be woken up. Now they said that this budget, the union budget, will do that, Professor Sengupta. But is Uttar Pradesh ready to marshal so much? Or how much of this budget that you've been seeing today hinges on the commitments of the UP Global Investor Summit? And how much of it also hinges on certain infrastructure, core infrastructure projects getting completed in time, the Jewar airport included?
Look, when it comes to ease of doing business, UP's turnaround on this particular score has been dramatic. In 2019, they were number 2 from God knows what rank. Now it's a toss-up. This year it will be lower, next year it will be higher, because that particular competition to be on top of the doing of ease of business rankings has become extremely hot. No state wants to give way, and UP now is in very good company. If you are competing with Gujarat for the top spot, that means you are onto something. Now let's come to the UP budget. Look, if you look at the UP budget, it's not the hype around the GIS which has now put the UP budget on focus. When last year, before Nirmala Sitharaman could present her budget, we were all worried whether the states had spent the capital expenditure allotted to them. And it turned out to many people's shock and our surprise that the state that had done remarkably well on this was Uttar Pradesh. It had done remarkably well in spending that particular money, and it was not a small sum. If you look at last year's budget, the amount of money UP has committed on infrastructure is twice that of Maharashtra. It is twice than that of Tamil Nadu. Of course, UP has a larger population, but its economy is much smaller. Yes. In spite of that, it committed over 1 lakh crore rupees to infrastructure. Now, prior to that, its spending ability, it was not able to spend that entire amount. It spent about 80 to 90% of that. But even that is fantastic, because it means it's higher than the 57,000 crore rupees that Maharashtra spent. It is higher than the 47,000 crore rupees that Tamil Nadu wanted to spend. So on that score, I think the credibility of the UP government when it comes to allotting monies for infrastructure and when it comes to spending them, you cannot match it. Now the question is, it has delivered certain things in this present budget as well. Right. I think given its past record, what it has done, and it has not done this, with newspapers and the print papers, basically applauding it. It has done its homework silently. It has done several things on the ground which are now manifesting themselves. Now look, when it comes, so will the businessmen be enamored? Look, UP feels confident. The first target of the Global Investor Summit was a modest 10 lakh crore. Then they said, we think we can buy for 17 lakh crores. Ultimately, it turned out to be 33 lakh crores. Now, as Suhail pointed out, as to whether this materializes or not is another matter altogether. But the fact is, things on the ground are changing. Now, Suhail talked about two things, Kashi and Ayodhya. I have to underline those once more, because at the end of the day, that's to do with tourism. People don't realize that Uttar Pradesh gets the second largest number of visitors after Tamil Nadu when it comes to tourism.
Correct.
It gets them, this is generally concentrated in the Western circuit, Agra and all that sort of a thing. Now, Kashi, Ayodhya is in the Indian psyche. You are cleaning those places up, you are making them clean. You see, so people who venerate Kashi are afraid of visiting Kashi because they are afraid of what they will see. With the Prime Minister making Kashi its constituency, followed up by a Yogi Act, cleaning up Kashi, refurbishing Ayodhya, if people start to turn up in their large numbers, the volume of employment that's going to be generated in UP will be fantastic. Remember, the employment multiplier for tourism is actually the highest of all sectors. It's another matter that I think UP is still not as ambitious as it should be when it comes to tourism, but it should be.
Correct.
It should be. And if it is able to turn that thing around, I think others will automatically follow. It will follow on the basis of its performance.
But here the aspect is that there may be a lot that may be put in place by the government per se in terms of intent. But Sandeep Ghosh, now you're the shoes on the other foot now for you. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, what is the sentiment among the corporates, among the investors? Because they looked at UP as a source to get manpower, labor. They never looked at UP as a destination to go and set up their factories.
So, Anand,
and businesses, sorry, yeah.
You know, this was all, I think Suhail and Dipankar have covered this point that every state, and I had written this article before that in one of your sister publications, all states hold these big jamborees, and as Suhail said, there are at gunpoint or otherwise everybody flies down and commits something which doesn't materialize. With an exception which we saw in Gujarat, where, it still may not have matched whatever was promised, but the whole buzz created and, that had a multiplier effect and, cascading effect, and that momentum continued. I attended the UP summit in 2018 as well. And at that point in time, I was again in service. And now this time, one can see a distinct shift from then to now because delivery has happened. Ultimately, proof of the pudding. So what has changed? First, as everybody says, governance and law and order. This is the biggest issue which people look for. Any industrialist, any investor would look for, which you see next door in Bihar, they have still not been able to attract investment despite some of those things changing. And why? Number two is infrastructure. Look at, even before Doc says, this expressway to Gorakhpur, which is opening up the entire Purvanchal. And we again know the cascading effect of that kind of infrastructure, which will develop the entire region. It's not just the connectivity between Gorakhpur and Lucknow or Delhi. Around that, Purvanchal was a very, very neglected area that is opening up. Bundelkhand Expressway is coming up. So those areas are today not only accessible for the people, so which is a two-way process. So that is going to trigger the investment. Number two, we talked about law and order. Third is governance. Yogi, very similar to Narendra Modi, is following the digitization process. Today, people are actually, on the contrary to what, these thousands of crore investment, small-time investors are actually worried about signing MOUs because from next day, those people will be after you. That what is the progress? And I'm telling this to you first time. Next day onwards, will be after you. What can I do? Do you need any help? Have you acquired land and the rest? And the MSME people today, because of the digital transparency, once they apply, if their applications are getting stuck somewhere, it is being monitored centrally. And people are coming and asking them, why is it stuck? Is it bureaucracy or is it corruption or whatever? And that is the ease of doing business which has changed. And look at this guy's vision in terms of, as Dipankar was talking about. UP has got technically some 27 airports, out of which 11 are functional today. Of them, 3 are international, which will now become 5. He was talking about Kashi. He has opened up the Buddhist circuit. Kushinagar has come into being. And this entire Buddhist circuit from there to Sarnath and coming through, and with Lumbini on the other side, you're now going to get with Kushinagar the entire Buddhist crowd, not just your Hindu pilgrims coming to, Kashi or later on. Now, it's not again Ram Mandir. Ram Mandir, one set of activities is happening if you've been there, Ayodhya, in terms of hotel infrastructure. But along with that, they're putting up the Ramayan circuit roads, and again, development is happening there. And forget the defense corridor. A lot of this investment will come and get triggered by some of the government investment. The entire defense corridor, which is coming up to Bundelkhand from Delhi, that is going to give you income. Last bit, I'll tell you, UP is perhaps the only state I know of where they are actually doing skills development. Yogi is working on this whole game of UP people going to have skill development, going to work elsewhere. If I'm not mistaken, they've trained some 16 lakh people in various skills. And he started doing this during COVID, mind you. When people came back, all the migrant labor, he started doing at that point in time, identifying which are the skills required, both for women and there, and started doing. So there is a lot of thinking which is going on, in this.
But see, all points taken, but is it manifest on ground is a larger question. Kushinagar, you talked about, it's still the ingress is limited. It's not open to anybody and everybody. It's limited from certain countries only. How much will tourism generate? And local tourism, culture and tourism cannot be the bedrock for a 7 lakh crore budget or
so let me jump in here.
Or a nation that wants to contribute 20%, or a state that wants to eventually contribute nearly 20% of the country's GDP or a 1 trillion economy. Yes.
So let me jump in here. 3 or 4 things happen. The real estate sector and tourism are the largest generators of employment across this country and across most countries. They're also the largest employers of both skilled and non-skilled workforces. So it works to everyone's advantage. What it does, Anand, is if you are even setting up, as you rightly say, with minor ingress or minimum ingress, let's say in Kushinagar or Ayodhya is still going to come, you are creating an ecosystem which will include the following. Once places get developed from a tourism standpoint, hotels come in. The real estate in that area goes up. People adopt residences. So you can't imagine the dramatic changes that happen almost overnight. Number one. Number two, please recognize that when you talk about airports, you're also talking about ease of arrival and ease of departure. A lot of people want to skip today, and this COVID has taught people. But I remember working on that brand when we said the Taj will send you a car to your house. आपको गाड़ी उठा के लेके जाएगी. You want to go to Rishikesh, it'll take you because you want it to be sanitized, you want safety. The third is his one district, one product campaign has actually taken off. People were laughing. In fact, I remember his name. I don't know whether it's Navneet Bhalla or Neeraj Bhalla. I remember him asking me about this 3 or 4 years ago. I said, if you do this well, you will mint money because they have the amount of craft that is available to them. Do you know, today, if they were to just revive the Banarsi weaver, they could reinvigorate and recalibrate the entire industry there, in addition to creating a lot of community empathy. So I think the wheels have been set in motion. There's no coming back. Governance, law and order, transparency, zero corruption are the most critical elements of any transformation. That transformation in Uttar Pradesh has begun. Also, what's happened is, no matter all the surround sound, you're not seeing any communal riots. You don't have any of the Bahubalis there. You don't talk about the gang wars anymore. Because what has happened is he's so focused on governance that he's saying, look, I'm not going to get involved with any of this nonsense. Plus, also remember, I'm sure Yogi also wants a promotion. So it is his aspirational streak that will also make him perform well, just like Modi's did in Gujarat. Modi had done 3 terms there. I mean, Modi knew that, greater things awaited him. I'm sure Yogi believes that too. Plus, he's been aided and helped. For all the things that you say, when Yogi was a member of parliament, and he was a member of parliament for a long time, he rustled up friendships across the aisle. Those come in play. So he's a more convenient ally to have. He's not the kind of guy who'll upset you or something like that.
Right. What I'm also looking at is that UP is playing catch up to some of the other states in terms of infra, in terms of skill, also in terms of attracting investors, because investors like to go back to known fields. UP is an unknown field, Professor Sengupta. Two aspects which stand out is education and the other one is healthcare. Now, he talked about Yogi Adityanath himself being a champion of healthcare. I know the case, how he championed Japanese encephalitis and the fight against that. And year after year, he would stand up as a Lok Sabha MP and raise this cause. And the moment he got the chance and any amount of power in his hand, he's worked towards eradicating Japanese encephalitis from that entire Purvanchal region. But healthcare and education in Uttar Pradesh are not up to the mark. If you're saying so that's a huge industry too.
Right.
Now I live in Noida, and that's why I talked about the Jewar airport. We know how critical Jewar is to nearly about 500 square kilometers of area in and around Noida. So you look at Mathura, you look at Aligarh, you look at all these areas, Meerut, all these places come into play the moment you have Jewar, the airport coming through. When is that going to come across? Plus, you've got huge campuses that have been put together during Mayawati's time and thereafter. Those universities, what kind of talent is it churning out and what kind of talent is it attracting? What kind of businesses are going to come down and set up and say, listen, I've got ready skill here. So those questions remain.
Of course, those questions remain. Look, when I said that UP is spending much more than Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu, one of the reasons is that UP is infrastructure deficient. When it comes to roadways, availability of roadways, given its area and population, lag behind these particular states. But UP is catching up fast. Now, see, one thing that you look about UP is the following: the combination of performance when it comes to infrastructure on the ground, setting it up. The other is the Sandeep Menden's strategy. They also know that given their disadvantages, what is the strategy that will basically give them maximum bang for the buck? This one district, one product is a strategy that basically enables them to neutralize many of the disadvantages. So, for example, the Banarasi silk. It is a niche item where buyers of Banarasi saris are willing to pay a premium price. Therefore, many of the disadvantages associated with cost for a short time are neutralized, by which time you get your act together on other things and you will reduce costs there also. This is a strategy that I see in UP. UP is doing a lot when skilling is concerned. Look, that way UP is basically being conservative with its money. It's basically choosing what to do with its money. And okay, one correction. Apart from Odisha, Odisha has done a lot of skilling. UP is also concentrated on skilling, and so it should. Look, those days where you could have untrained labor doing a lot of things are now ebbing away.
Yeah.
Any state which wants to climb up the economic ladder fast cannot do it on the basis of untrained labor alone. UP understands it. And when it does one district, one product, those products require skill. They require local skill. Local skill is there. And if you look at UP's industry, people think UP never had industry. Kanpur was once a very booming industrial town. And then the CPM went for this particular strike, and that entire bloody city sank.
So Hasini Ali and her ilk,
yes,
they destroyed the tanneries, they destroyed your Piaggio Singhania element was born out of Kanpur.
Everybody.
Swadesh politics, born out of Kanpur.
Look, let me let you into a couple of secrets, Anand. Every state promises huge incentives. Okay, at the end of it, they don't have money in the coffers today to actually pay. There are a massive outstanding. In UP, you don't even have to chase for your incentives. The money comes to you on a periodic basis. There are meetings happening, and these are big sums. What I'm talking about, and I'm talking about from experience. So that is the kind of change. So there is investment coming. Whereas you say there are handicap, UP has got a locational advantage. Fine, how many people can go to Tamil Nadu or Maharashtra? Look at UP is in the consumption heartland. And who are you comparing with? One hand, you have Bihar. This side, whatever Haryana had to do has finished, saturated. Punjab you can't go to. Rajasthan is neither here nor there. Whereas UP has a locational advantage. And again, give you two very, might appear trivial points. My daughter is a photographer, street photographer. She went to Varanasi this time, and she was very amused to see small dhabas selling sushi and Korean food. If you look at it, I don't know what kind of sushi and Korean food it is, but that is the kind of enterprise people have. They're getting that kind of, so, you know, with Dhaba, apart from kachori and other things, you're finding they're writing sushi.
Because of tourism.
But look, Anand,
And
UP
just 1 minute, you know what Yogi gave away as gifts to all the delegates? He gave to people the one district, one product item. I got one set of cufflinks, which are stone cufflinks made from Banda or whichever area.
Yeah.
And then a stole made of chicken. So everybody got different things. And he's in this budget, they have set aside money to set up this ODOP Unity malls, they're calling it.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of, look at his around.
See, the ODOP Unity malls is something which is mandated even in the union budget. Because state governments are now being incentivized to put these Unity malls, and somewhere it is being impressed upon them that you have to do it because they want to take ODOP nationally. That's what they wanting to do, try and localized economies. But what my question, and please jump in, and because we'll wind up in the next 5 minutes, each of you please jump in. Is UP sociologically evolved enough and ready to try and create an environment where all these rules are in place, but the workforce will also behave? There is a professional turnout and deliverance, because most companies are going to look for that. Because if they set up...
But UP has never had the militancy of Kerala, the laziness of Bengal, or the complete lackadaisical, I don't care attitude of a Punjab. UP has never been faulted for that. Where UP has suffered is on image, qua governance and law and order. If you lick that, you have no problem. Please remember, when it was the United Provinces, people in Lucknow were actually running large swathes of northern India. So I don't believe that there is a sociological disadvantage. There is only one disadvantage: the impoverishment of opportunity. You know, Anand, I'm a great believer. Every country has poverty. In India, our poverty is unique. It's the impoverishment of opportunities. If you don't give a person education, don't guarantee him healthcare, then you have a problem. Once you link these two areas, I genuinely believe that UP will be at the forefront. Because let's face it, you know, and I know these people personally and I know them well. A Chandrasekaran of Tata Sons, a Mukesh Ambani of Reliance will not go and make a comment or make a commitment if they're not serious about it. Because tomorrow they'll be accountable not only to the government of Uttar Pradesh, they'll also be accountable to their shareholders. These are serious people. These aren't people.
And they know what they're doing. You see, Mukesh Ambani is not going to set up a refinery in UP. He's putting money in Geo, which is going to have again a multiplier effect in terms of improving the...
Because it's data starved. UP is data starved.
Yes. So 1 point, Doc, before I leave it to you. See, when you're talking about industry, today modern industry doesn't per se require so much of labor. The employment would be generated in the tertiary sector from there in the services sector elsewhere. And that labor is available. They were lacking opportunity. That's why they were going to other states. So that will come there. And that's going to give it a plus over there. And that's what they're looking at. I think everybody coming in. Since you have the infrastructure, the law and order, if it is there, you'll find people moving. The key would be, that's what is very important for Yogi to continue for the second term. And I think that'll give it the continuity.
We'll have to see. Carrying the bat through is important, and implementation is going to be key. Yes, final word, Professor Sengupta, we'll wind up.
What is important is, if you look at the breakup of these summit proposals, you know, the geographical spread actually is extremely interesting. It is true that the region near the NCR bags the lion's share of the proposals. But there are other proposals. Purvanchal gets actually a lot of proposals. And some of these proposals are so interesting. Apart from tourism, etc., you know, there is a greenfield oxygen site, a hydrogen site that ABC Cleantech wants to set up. So I think business who will have to actually commit money on the ground are far more aware of the realities of UP and the turnaround taking place than we, with our colored perceptions which come from the English-speaking media, have about UP. UP is fast changing, and this change in perception that has been taking place is not media-led. It has been led by performance, when people have found to their shock that UP is doing far better on several fronts than our growth polls. That has shocked a lot of people.
No, it's very welcome because I see it, and I echo it because I live in Noida, and I have traveled even through the elections. When I was traveling across Uttar Pradesh, we could see things changing on ground, attitudes changing on ground. You know, the day ends. Day did not end at sunset. It ended at 10:30, 11 in the night, which was, and in places like Mirzapur, that is never heard of, Mau, that's not heard of, and it was happening, and I'm witness to it. But overall, has it seeped right down to the ground that this is the mission that we have to do together as a state, UP, because the government can't do, the people have to chip in. See, UP is the strongest workforce alongside, maybe they may be competing with Bihar and Odisha somewhere, but across the country, a lot of the powering labor is happening with UP. So if the people of UP, once they've come back in COVID, are wanting to stay back and they have the reason to stay back in their own regions, and if that one district, one product attitude takes off, that you create local economies across the various blocks and districts of UP, 72 districts of UP, you've got a thing going, and then investments will come. But did the Global Investor Summit actually echo that sentiment? I'm not even going at the actual figure that's being claimed. I'm saying, will Uttar Pradesh even get about, say, 25 to 30% of what is being claimed?
I think it will.
Then it's a home run. That's where it is.
I think
It'll get more. It'll get more.
And Anand, finally say, you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter what it gets in terms of money. I mean, it matters, but let me tell you what it has done. It has put Uttar Pradesh as a serious contender for serious investors' money, because it believes that there is a serious opportunity available in UP today. UP is the rising sun in India, and we must respect the fact that the government of UP under Yogi has done marvelously well. There's no coming back. They've turned the tide. Now it's a question of managing expectations and making things work.
One index I have, Anand, hard index, is cement sales. UP cement sales have been buoyant and steady, and that happens. Cement is directly related to GDP.
And real estate. Correct.
So it is related, and that shows that there is investment coming in.
And UP has its own entrepreneurial class, own native entrepreneurial class, by the way, a strong native entrepreneurial class.
Well, let's hope, fingers crossed. It's a landmark budget. It's what's being claimed as a landmark investors summit. We look at the climate closer to Jan 2024, because by then Ram Mandir would have also happened. The puja would have also happened. How much of groundbreaking happens, we'll see, and we'll hold these three gentlemen to account at that time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much.